So, what is it that really separates a good leader from a truly great one? Especially in a world like ours that's just constantly changing and throwing new things at us. Well, it's not about having all the answers. Turns out it all comes down to one critical shift in how you think.
And the need for this shift has never been more urgent. Get this, a staggering 75% of leaders report feeling completely overwhelmed by the pressures of their jobs. If you're a leader, that probably doesn't surprise you at all, right? But it is a massive signal that something has got to change.
So you got to ask the question, is this feeling of being constantly overwhelmed just a personal failure, or is it a symptom of a much, much deeper issue? I mean, are the traditional models of leadership that we've all been taught and relied on for decades, are they just broken in the face of all this modern complexity?
Look, the answer isn't about learning another new skill or trying out the latest productivity hack you saw online. The most profound and necessary change is actually internal. It is a fundamental shift in mindset. It's about changing how you think about yourself, your team, and your entire role in the organization.
The best way to understand this difference is with a simple metaphor. The old model, right? It cast the leader as this chess master, directing every single move from above, very fixed, very controlling, and totally focused on their own expertise. The new model, though, it completely reimagines the leader as a kind of coach, adaptive, empowering, and focused on unlocking the incredible potential in others.
And this really gets to the heart of the idea. Real transformation isn't about these big, flashy, visible actions. It happens in the nuanced, subtle shifts inside a leader's mind. Before you can delegate effectively or build an amazing team, you first have to adopt the mindset that even makes those actions possible. So, let's break this down into a few key parts. The first pillar of this new leadership is what we'll call the strategic mindset. This is all about moving from being a firefighter, constantly just reacting to one urgent crisis after another, to being more of an architect, intentionally building for the future.
So what do we actually mean by strategic thinking? It's not some big, scary planning session you do once a year. It's a continuous, intentional thought process, always analyzing the bigger picture to make sure every little action you take today is actually aligned with the long-term vision.
So how do you actually build this strategic muscle? Well, it really comes down to a few key habits. You have to learn to zoom out to see that bigger picture, and then zoom back in by asking better, more curious questions instead of just reacting. This means exploring different alternatives, seeing how a decision in one area might affect another, and, this one's crucial, reflecting on your past choices so you can learn and iterate.
All right, let's move on to the second pillar, and you'll see how this builds on the first. This is the coaching mindset, and wow, this is a huge interpersonal shift. It's all about realizing your job isn't to direct people, but to develop them, to move from being the controller to being the coach.
The essence of this shift is actually pretty simple. Questioning replaces telling. Listening becomes more important than speaking. And enabling your team takes precedence over just instructing them. You stop being the one with all the answers, and you start being the one with all the best questions, empowering your team to find their own brilliant solutions.
Now here's the thing. This whole coaching mindset, it can only thrive in a very specific environment. And that environment is built on something called psychological safety. It's the core belief that your team members can be vulnerable, that they can take risks, ask dumb questions, and even fail without any fear of punishment. This is the absolute foundation.
And hey, if you need proof of just how powerful this is, look no further than Google. Their massive internal study called Project Aristotle found that this one factor, psychological safety, was more important than anything else in creating their most innovative and successful teams. The takeaway is crystal clear. No safety, no innovation. Period.
Okay, on to our third and final pillar, which turns the focus inward. This is the resilient mindset. This is all about your own mental and emotional agility. It's about shifting your own thinking from being fixed and rigid to being more fluid and adaptive when you're facing challenges.
This resilient mindset is really made up of 4 interconnected attitudes that all work together. You've got a growth mindset, which is the belief that potential is infinite. An inclusive mindset, where you're actively seeking out different voices. An agile mindset, where you don't just tolerate change, you invite it. And an enterprise mindset, which means breaking down silos to think about the good of the whole organization.
Let's make this real. A growth mindset challenges a common assumption like this one. Instead of thinking collaboration absolutely requires everyone to be in the same room, a leader with this mindset asks,
Okay, how can we innovate in how we collaborate? It just opens up a whole new playbook of possibilities.
And here's another really powerful example. An inclusive mindset actively fights back against our natural biases. It dismantles that old, outdated assumption that proximity equals importance, and it replaces it with the understanding that valuable, game-changing contributions can come from anyone, anywhere.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why, but how do you actually start? How do you put this mindset shift to work today? Well, it's not about some massive overhaul overnight. It's about small, intentional actions.
You can start with 3 super simple but really powerful actions. In your next meeting, just ask one more question before you jump in with a solution. Or try actively listening to a team member simply to understand them, not to just formulate your response. And finally, just block off 15 minutes this week to reflect on a recent decision. Small habits like these, that's how you begin to rewire your leadership brain.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The potential of the people you lead is truly infinite. They can learn, they can grow, and they can achieve absolutely incredible things. The only real question is, does your mindset create the conditions for all that to happen, or does it become the one thing that limits them?